Hello, my name is Dean Contover. This is The Current Buzz. Thank you for watching today. We have Myra Dolan. She's an attorney. She's running for Governor's Council, and we're going to ask her, what the heck is Governor's Council? But thank you for coming. She's going to be a candidate, and the election is September 3rd. So make sure you vote September 3rd, absentee ballot, whatever you want to do. It's September 3rd because it's a Democratic primary. Yep. And it matters because you're up against another Democrat. Is that my understanding of it?
That's correct. And there is no Republican running for the office.
Oh.
So the outcome of the general election will be determined by the Democratic primary.
Okay, please put on your calendar September 3rd that you go out and vote. I know it's after Labor Day, etc., but please, September 3rd is the date for everyone to go and vote. Governor's Council.
Yes.
It's interesting subject matter. Most people don't know what a governor's counselor does, right? And I'm going to ask you the question: why and what do you do as the governor's council?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Dean, for having me on. I'm really glad to be on Chelmsford Telemedia. It's a wonderful opportunity to reach out to the folks in Chelmsford. The district is very large. We've got 31 cities and towns. So it's really important to be able to reach as many voters as we can. So I really thank you for that.
Okay, no problem.
Governor's counselors are the most consequential, least known elected officials in Massachusetts. But one of the great things about running is that when you tell people what the Governor's Council does, without exception, everyone says, that's incredibly important, and they pay attention. If you care who our judges are, you need to care who your Governor's Counselor is. The Governor's Council confirms judges, parole board members, and commutations and pardons.
A lot of people don't realize that.
Very important role, yes.
I was doing the research, and
Yes.
We'll get to the others, but go ahead.
Well, and I do want folks to know I've been a public defender for 17 years. I've worked all across Massachusetts in our juvenile courts, our district courts, and our superior courts. So I am very familiar with the issues playing out in our courts today, and I think it's essential to the role of Governor's Counselor that we have someone with that expertise and that experience.
And there's no one like that on the Governor's Council?
No. In fact, since the Supreme Court established the right to counsel for people who can't afford to hire their own attorney in 1963, we've had 52 governor's counselors, and not a single one has been a full-time public defender.
Okay.
It's a perspective that is badly needed and badly overdue.
And it doesn't pay that much?
No, it pays $36,500 a year.
That's it?
So I tell people this is a lot of work for a job that pays $36,500, but it's really important work that I want to do.
So you're in District 3. That's
Yes.
what you're...
Yes.
And there's an incumbent now?
There's an incumbent, yes. She's been in for 25 years,
Okay.
and it's time for change.
Okay. And District 3 covers even Boston, Newton?
Has parts of Boston, has all of Newton,
Boston.
all of Brookline. It starts in Boston. It's got the South End, Back Bay, Beacon Hill, Fenway, Alston, Brighton, and Longwood.
Wow.
And then it goes north all the way to Burlington.
Okay.
It goes west all the way to Marlborough, and then it goes south all the way to Wellesley. So I'm from Concord. If you go to my website, maradolan.com, you can click on the district and get a list of all the towns. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of towns.
A lot of towns.
And you have to cover these towns, and you have to get signatures, et cetera.
I did it, got my signatures, got 1,400 signatures, thanks to a lot of wonderful volunteers and just me out, at town dumps, getting people's signatures, and
They'll definitely show up, and they're definitely from that town, usually.
Yes, they're from that town, yeah.
So that's a place to go. Okay. We don't have a town dump in Chelmsford, but...
You don't. I would have been there if you did.
So you
Shout out to the Chelmsford Town Clerk, though. The Chelmsford Town Clerk is great, and they have wonderful social media, so I encourage everybody to follow the Chelmsford Town Clerk on social media.
Okay. All right. Okay, Governor's Council... did we talk what the duties were?
We did.
I mean, and they meet once a month?
Once a week.
Once a week.
Once a week.
Okay.
They have meetings and hearings on Wednesdays at the State House.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a staff, or
No.
No?
I'm no stranger to that, though.
Oh,
That's okay.
All right. So basically, you get $36,000 a year.
$36,500, yes.
$36,500. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And you don't have a staff.
Right.
So all the letters.
There is a clerk for the Governor's Council,
okay.
but the individual counselors have to do it all themselves. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So when somebody gets a notary or gets a justice of the peace, the clerk of the office types it and you just sign it,
I
right?
would think, yeah.
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 Oh, it goes. Okay. All right. All right. That's it. So it's part of the executive branch, right? Is it?
No,
No?
it's really interesting. It does advise and consent, provide advice and consent to the governor,
Okay.
but it's a check and balance on the governor. So they really do act independently, and that's a really important point.
Okay.
We need to make sure that we have a governor's counselor who is providing that check and balance.
Okay. So the governor gets a list of judges. It's whittled down to.
Here's how it works.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I would need to know.
The governor appoints a judicial nominating committee.
Okay.
The judicial nominating committee.
How many members on the committee?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay.
The judicial nominating committee, it's a large number. It's not a
Okay.
handful of people. They review applications and they vet applicants. They interview them if they choose to. And then they make recommendations to the governor. The governor then nominates people, and it's the governor's council that has the final say on whether they are actually approved
I see.
and confirmed to be a judge.
I see.
Or a parole board member, or whether they receive a commutation or a pardon.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah, the last word is on all those things is with the governor's council.
So if
It's
somebody
incredibly
was
important.
busted for, I'm using the term
Yes.
busted, for marijuana,
Yes.
they can get that.
Well, I'm glad you raised that issue.
There. Thank you.
So Governor Healy.
Because I'm sure people are perking up right now.
Oh, right. Of
you know.
course they are. And I have a number of things to say about that that
Okay,
I don't think
good.
anybody else is saying and that need to be said.
Okay.
The governor pardoned people with convicted of a simple possession of marijuana.
Broad pardon.
Which was an excellent decision, an absolutely excellent decision. But it needs to go farther, and I'll tell you why. There's a whole other category of folks who were charged with simple possession of marijuana, but they did not get a conviction. They weren't found guilty. They got what's called a continuance without a finding of guilty, CWOF. We refer to it as a quaff.
Is that open? Like forever?
Well, what it is, no, it's not open forever. What it means is that someone is put on probation for a certain period, and if they comply with the terms of their probation, at the end of that period, the charges are dismissed. Well, what that means is that because they were never convicted, they're not eligible for a pardon, but it stays on their record, and it can still be used to get them. It can still be held against them. And that's also true of the people who are pardoned. That is still on their record. Their record will say that they had the conviction, but that they were pardoned. That could still be held against someone. So what we really need to do is expunge those records. And that, I know that there's some talk in the legislature about a bill that would do that, and I hope that passes. Because it just isn't right for the folks who didn't get a conviction, the folks who got a quaff, don't get a pardon, but the people who were found guilty do, and it's still on their record. In either case, that's not right.
Okay. Now, there are other cases where people were in the car and the car was stopped and they were busted for other drugs,
Yep.
let's say.
Right.
And it's on their record that they went to court and allegedly were involved in other.
That's a different charge.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
not a marijuana charge.
Yeah,
So
no, I
someone is
understand.
charged with, a Class A substance.
So
or
what would
Class B
somebody have to do with that if they were, and have led a straight life after that?
Well, they could apply for a pardon.
They could
I mean,
apply. How would they do that?
you apply to the Board of Pardons.
Pardons, okay.
So if someone has it on their record, they can seek to have the record sealed or expunged.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No, I didn't know. I mean, a lot of people don't know.
People
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, and
All right.
it really is concerning when folks have been leading a commendable life. They may have made a mistake when they were younger.
Of course.
There's a lot.
That happens to a lot of people.
Well, it does, and in fact, the science of brain development is very clear that the brain is not fully developed until you're 25, and in fact, the SJC.
Well, I would
cited this.
question that, but
Well, the SJC.
I understand. It's
You're
a pun.
saying some people don't
It's
have
a
their
pun.
brains developed
Yeah,
until
yeah.
they're 80. Probably true. But for the purposes of this discussion,
Okay.
the science is clear. It's to the age of 25. And the SJC actually recently cited that science in a case that made us the first state in the country to hold that a sentence of life without parole to someone under the age of 17 is unconstitutional. And there were 4 specific areas that they cited where people under the age of 25 are not the same as fully developed adults. It's impulse control, it's risk-taking, it's peer influence, and it's capacity for change.
I know them all.
You know them all, exactly. So that's why I also support raising the age of juvenile court jurisdiction.
Oh, no kidding. To what?
Well, the current proposal is to raise it to 20. We know that when the age is raised, it reduces crime, it reduces recidivism, and it improves public safety.
Wow.
When we raised the age from 17 to 18, the number of crimes charged went way down. It did all those things. So we know, and this has happened elsewhere, we know that this is what will happen. So it should be raised at least to 20, but the current proposal is to raise it to 20 over a 5-year period so that programmatically courts can adapt to that. Now, my opponent disagrees with all that. She rejects the science of brain development. She doesn't think we should raise the age. She thinks the juvenile courts are just fine the way they are. I've represented hundreds and hundreds of children in our juvenile courts, and I strongly disagree.
Oh, that's great. You just had a debate, didn't you?
We did. Thank you for asking. Yes, yes. It was hosted at the Woburn Public Media Center.
Okay.
And they have provided the link to the server so that all the local cable access stations can link it and show it. I hope that you'll show it in Chelmsford. As you know, I had a show on local cable and CCTV in Concord, and I know the power of local cable. You folks do a wonderful job informing the community about the local issues and educating folks. So.
Right. So I guess we could pick it up in regards to show it here.
Absolutely, it'll be on the server and you can show it. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I hope that you do. It was an excellent discussion.
I'll talk to them and the director and ask him.
Great.
Okay. So we have District 3,
yes.
right? It entails how many? 35?
31. 31 cities and towns. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's larger than a congressional district.
I know, no doubt.
Yeah, it's huge.
No doubt. Do you know the congressional member of Congress in this district, in
yes,
the 3rd district?
I do.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I was endorsed by Congressman Seth Moulton, who represents part of the district. My own U.S. rep is Lori Trahan, who I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does she support you at all?
I'm just going to say nothing for the moment.
Okay, that's up to her,
No, I
all
think
right.
very highly of her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Let's say, the parole board.
Yes.
How many members on the parole board? I think there was 7, right?
There are 7.
Okay.
There is proposed legislation to increase that number to 9. I support that legislation. The parole board is working extremely hard. We do at this point have 7 members. For a while we didn't, and it was pretty tough. There was no one in Western.
You have to get a quorum, don't you? I mean.
No, people go before. You don't have. It's not all parole board members who hear every application for parole. But I've represented people who were applying for parole during COVID, during the pandemic. And one of the things that concerns me is that there is no right to counsel for a parole board hearing. So people go in and they haven't had the opportunity to consult with counsel about what to expect and what their rights are and what they need to do.
So what do you intend to do with that?
Well, I think what can be done in practical terms is to make sure that all our parole board members are the finest that we can get. That the parole board, the makeup of the parole board is determined by statute. So we have to have a diversity of views, diversity of expertise and experience, people with a mental health background, people with a substance use background.
Good point.
All those things. Yeah. So I'm very encouraged. I think Maura Healey has nominated terrific people to the parole board, and I think that we're improving our rates of release, because there are a lot of people who have rehabilitated, but they're still incarcerated. They don't pose a danger. They can develop what's called a homing plan, where they'll have a place to go, they'll have a job, they can rebuild their.
Or can go to school.
Right, or do whatever it is that they need to do to get back on the right track. And that's what we should be helping them do, instead of incarcerating them. If they're ready to be released and they don't pose a danger, we should really be doing that.
Oh, I see. Okay, why 9? Why from 7 to 9? Or what's the reasoning?
That's the proposal before the legislature, and I don't know what their thinking is behind that, but certainly 9 would be able to do more than 7.
Do you have to be an attorney to be on the parole board?
No, you don't.
Because I'm not familiar with it. Yeah,
They're not all attorneys.
So, I mean, a lay person like myself could be
in
appointed.
theory, yes. In theory, Dean, you too could be a member of the parole board.
Not that I want to be.
I know. It's tough work. I admire them.
Oh, yeah.
That work.
So they have to go before the governor's council to be
confirmed to serve on the parole board. Right. And the parole board also recommends people for commutations and pardons. So with a pardon, what you're saying is that the person deserves to be relieved of the burden of their conviction. With a commutation, it's that they've been sentenced to a term and they have not completed the term, but with a commutation, that ends the sentence.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. So, somebody is incarcerated, as they call it, right?
Yes.
Put in jail,
Yes.
as we put street term.
They're in prison, yeah.
Yeah. He comes up for parole. He either is, let's say, a murder victim. He is either put in incarcerated for life, or it could be life to parole. Is that in?
First-degree murder is life without the possibility of parole.
Okay.
But because the SJC just said that it's unconstitutional to sentence someone under the age of 18 to life without the possibility of parole, the people who did receive that sentence are now eligible for parole. It doesn't mean that they will be paroled, but it means that they're eligible.
Okay.
And that's really important.
Right. Okay. So I'm just trying to grasp it,
Yes.
as a layperson.
No.
So I go before the parole board. I don't have counsel next to me to
Right.
help me
Right.
express my opinions.
Right. But if we've got really good parole board members, that the system can work really
good
well.
point. Good
Right.
point. Yeah.
Right.
So, so what happens if they grant me parole? How's that after they get parole?
Parole has conditions attached to it.
Okay.
You have a parole officer. There may be people you can't associate with. You may have to remain drug and or alcohol free. You have a homing plan. You need to comply with the homing plan. So they want to keep track of people and make sure that they're doing the things that they need to do in order to transition from being incarcerated to being free.
Okay.
And I've worked with a lot of people over my 17 years, and I can tell you that these are folks who want to have a good life.
Okay.
They do.
Most people do.
Most people, that's
Most
what I'm
people do,
saying.
yeah.
Most people do, yeah.
Another thing I looked up, Industrial Accident Board.
Yes.
Are you also
Yes.
make the decision?
Yes, that's the governor's
Explain what
council,
the
too.
Industrial Accident Board
Yes.
does for a lot of people that may not know
Yes.
why they're there.
Right, and that's very important that we make sure that the members of the Industrial Accident Board understand labor, understand workers, understand disability, understand all the issues that folks are dealing with.
Right. In regards, what's the membership? Do you know how many members?
Not off the top of my head.
It's probably 7 or 5.
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's a good
okay.
question.
But it would be an odd number, right?
I don't know.
No, it wouldn't be even, because then there'd be even voting.
Well, the Governor's Council has 8 members, but in the event of a tie, the Lieutenant Governor breaks
Oh,
the tie.
okay, all right. Okay, good point, good point. So Industrial Accident Board is basically somebody who gets in the accident on the job, construction worker, let's say, and I guess whatever they give him, he can go before the board, and they would grant him certain whatever.
As I
he's
understand it,
entitled.
I'm not intimately
Okay.
familiar with the Industrial
All right.
Accident Board, but yes, as I
Okay,
understand
all
it.
right. So that's what basically they are. So if anybody knows anybody, they can go before the accident. I would presume you have to put an application in and so forth to have a hearing and so
Customary,
forth.
yes.
Yeah, and probably you'd have counsel there, right? I mean, at an industrial accident
You're
board.
certainly not prohibited from having counsel.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's a good point. Appellate tax board also. What is the appellate tax board?
You're killing me here, Dean.
I know.
My area of expertise is criminal law.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. So, it's appellate. If you have a tax problem, you can appeal it,
Right,
basically.
right.
So,
It's tax appeals.
a tax appeal. And,
I'm not an expert on tax appeals, but that is what they do.
I'd have to get a tax lawyer in and ask them that, because everybody has a little niche in regards to attorneys. A lot of people don't understand. There's a lot
It's
of
an area that you practice.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Okay. Does abortion come up in regards to the Governor's Council? Do you
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Well, the governor,
How is that? Explain that.
there are a number of ways that it matters.
Okay.
The Governor's Council, first of all, confirms judges. And if you look at the history of Massachusetts, there is case law going back for centuries involving abortion that have been heard in our appeals court and by the Supreme Judicial Court.
Is it that, does that mean that it was made by men, seeing they went back centuries?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Going back centuries,
Yeah.
it was made by men.
Okay.
So when you look at the rights that we have now in Massachusetts, those have been established over time. It is critically important that all of our judges are pro-choice, as I am. The other way that this applies, in many ways even more directly, is that in Massachusetts, the law is that if someone under the age of 16 wants an abortion, they have to have the consent of either a parent or an adult guardian.
One parent?
One parent,
Okay.
one adult guardian. If they can't get that, there's only one other avenue for them, and that's to get authorization from a justice of the superior courts. Now,
Not district court, superior court,
courts,
which
right.
is the
So
next higher level for
the
people that
right.
may not know.
So the incumbent, my opponent, right after Roe versus Wade was overturned, voted to confirm an anti-choice judge to our superior courts. And I want folks to know how this happened so that there's no question. And you can find the video on my YouTube channel, which is linked to my website, maradolan.com. This was a nominee who had donated repeatedly to anti-choice organizations, the Susan B. Anthony Fund, which works to elect anti-choice members of Congress, and also National Right to Life. And because of those contributions, she was asked repeatedly during her hearing if she would support the right to choose. And she repeatedly refused to say that she would. After the hearing, one of the counselors said, when the council reconvened to vote on the nomination, he got up and said he was so concerned by those answers, and he categorized them as being worthy of Brett Kavanaugh. That was Governor's Councillor Terry Kennedy.
Say that again?
He said that her answers were worthy of Brett Kavanaugh. And if you watch the hearing, they were. She was, I mean, if somebody asks you if you support the right to choose, it's an easy question to answer. And if you do, you answer it with yes. And if you don't, you say, well, I'm not sure it applies, which is what she said. She said it didn't have anything to do with Superior Court, which is, of course, totally false. It does. But Councillor Terry Kennedy said at the hearing, when they were getting ready to vote on the nomination, that he had been so concerned that he called her personally to ask her if she would at least recuse herself in abortion cases. And because she would not say that she would, he would vote no. And right after he said that, the incumbent, my opponent, Marilyn Devaney, said, and I quote, and you can watch it on video, please send us more. I will absolutely never vote to confirm anyone who is not completely pro-choice. Massachusetts must continue to lead on reproductive rights, just as we have. We now have 41 states.
Didn't we lead in women's rights in regards to the early 1900s and so forth?
We did. We've always led. We need to continue to lead. And that's why we've got to make sure that all of our judges are pro-choice. And this is personal to me because I was living in Massachusetts at the age of 19 when I had an unplanned pregnancy. And the laws of Massachusetts really did make my life possible. They made it possible for me to pursue my education, to do the work that I do, and to become a mother at when it was right and when I could be the kind of mother that I wanted to provide for my child. I was able to do those things because of the rights that were established by the people who came before me. So I will do absolutely everything as your governor's counselor to maintain and uphold those rights.
Okay. Myra Dolan.
Mara.
Mara, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I have a friend.
Are we running out of time?
Yes, we're running out of time.
I have to tell you,
want
I'm the most endorsed Democratic primary challenger this year, and we think maybe in any other year. I have 5 state senators endorsing me, including your state senator, Mike Barrett. I've got 13 state reps, the House Majority Leader, the House Assistant Majority Leader, Mike Moran and Alice Peisch,
Wow.
Congressman Seth Moulton, Auditor Diana DeZoglio, Harvard University Law Professor Emeritus Larry Tribe, Dean
Wow.
Ellen, multiple
I'm
unions.
impressed with Larry
The state
Tribe.
Me too. The State Police Association of Massachusetts, the IBEW Local 103, the list goes on. Why do I have all these endorsements? Because they know me, they know the work that needs to be done, and they trust me to deliver. I'd love to hear from folks. You can reach me on my website, maradolan.com, or just email me at mara@maradolan.com.
Wow.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I appreciate you coming
it's a
coming
pleasure.
on and talking to the people of Chester or Merrimack Valley who's going to see this. And,
There's an endorsement I really want to announce, but I can't. But I will. Yeah.
yeah, so, I mean, good luck.